Most people assume tariffs
Mhm.
are inflationary. It hasn't been the case. It wasn't the case in 2016. I don't think it's going to be the case this time. And let me explain why. The disruption of changing the world order, the world trading order, slows
Mhm.
everything down. It's going to slow down, maybe not permanently, but temporarily slow down economies. It's already pulled our stock market back a little bit, not dramatically. The media wants to tell you we're all poor and we can't retire, but it's literally like 15%. It's no big deal, and never should have been as high as we were. But it's pulling back asset prices, and what that does is that people feel less wealthy, they spend less money, so that in itself is deflationary. So individual items might be more expensive, but people are spending less money and this economy is slowing. That's going to pull basic items down. That's my opinion. So far, that's what we're starting to see, but the jury's still out.
We're very happy to announce that our next live online regenerative ag workshop, Biochar for Coffee, Making Coffee Farming More Resilient, will be taking place in English and Spanish in May this year. Tickets will be available soon, and we'd love you to pre-register your interest in the event by dropping your email at mapperforward.coffee/workshops. Check the show notes for links. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a very informative and not confusing at all series with Carley Garner from DeCarley Trading. Carley, normally I have a conversation with you, and then by episode 3 in the series, my brain feels like it's melting a little bit. That's not happening this time, so
Yeah.
that feels really fantastic. Yay. We are talking about tariffs and coffee prices. And Carley, in this episode, we're talking about tariffs. So, how about we start? For reference sake, we are recording this on the 17th of April, and right now Trump is awake. So, we have no idea if by the time we finish recording this series, if everything we say is going to have changed. So please don't hold us to this. This is going to come out on the Monday. Like, this will come out right away, this series. So just for reference sake, as of right this moment, this is what's happening with tariffs. So what do we know, Carley?
Well, I mean, we don't know much of anything, right? Everything is a moving target. Every day is different. So again, we can't control I can't control what's going on in DC. All I can control is what I do. So I'm just trying to make sure I have all my risks covered on all ends. And
Mm-hmm.
some of that snuck in and bit me in the butt. So it's not like I've done the most perfect job of that. But this is what it was like when Trump was in office last time. So we kind of had a little bit of a warm up then, and now we're getting into a little more excitement. But there's a couple things I'll say on tariffs. I'm not going to argue for or against them. Everybody has their
Mm-hmm.
opinions there. This administration has identified what they believe is a problem, and they're trying to fix it. Now this is something, not to get into politics, but
Mm-hmm.
politicians on both sides of our left and right here in the U.S. have been talking about this issue for 20 years, but nobody has been able to do anything about it, and nobody wanted to for a long time either. Just kind of grew, and you may or may not think it's a problem, but the reality is this chosen to try to shake things up and
Mm-hmm.
fix it. So all we can do is stand by and protect ourselves. The biggest thing to me is most people assume, and I'm just going to talk blanket at first, most people assume tariffs
Mm-hmm.
are inflationary. It hasn't been the case. It wasn't the case in 2016. I don't think it's going to be the case this time, and let me explain why. The disruption of changing the world order, the world trading order, slows
Mm-hmm.
everything down. It's going to slow down, maybe not permanently, but temporarily slow down economies. It's already pulled our stock market back a little bit, not dramatically. The media wants to tell you we're all poor and we can't retire, but it's literally like 15%. It's no big deal, and never should have been as high as we were. But it's pulling back asset prices, and what that does is that people feel less wealthy, they spend less money. So that in itself is deflationary. So individual items might be more expensive, but people are spending less money and this economy is slowing. That's going to pull basic items down. That's my opinion. So far, that's what we're starting to see, but the jury's still out tonight. If you want to confirm that, you can look at copper prices, you could look at crude oil prices, natural gas. They're all coming in because demand has dropped. Okay, so with that said, I'll take it one step further and say consumers have choices, right? Not every product is going to be something you're willing to pay an extra 20, 30, 40% for. So inflation is something that's blanket, not tariffs. Tariffs is going to raise this product and not this product, this product, not this product. Now with coffee, we do not raise coffee here in the US. So that's probably a product that will, I don't know, but I'm assuming it's going to be exempt. I think that's the idea, is to tariff products that we could potentially make here and not tariff products that we can't make no matter what. So I assume that's going to be the case. And if so, that shouldn't really impact what's going on in coffee. I think it's going to be more of a seasonal and fundamental story. I think the tariff reaction occurred a month ago. We had a real big tariff spike, and then it's kind of started to give some of that back. I think that's going to continue. I don't think coffee is going to be caught up in the crossfire, but again, as you said, it's April 17th in the afternoon. That can change quickly.
Trump's awake.
Yeah, anything can happen.
So, in your mind, if I understand that correctly, we don't know the impact that tariffs are going to have. They could be inflationary, they might not be inflationary. It's all dependent on what role consumer behavior is going to play in this. And is that connected to price elasticity of different products?
It is. So yes, what I'm talking about. So let me put it this way. We'll just talk about cars. So in the US, I can buy a car that's made in the US, or I can buy a car that's made outside the country and pay 30% more. I'm going to just for price purposes. So it's not really inflationary if no one's buying. They can set prices at whatever they want, but if no one's buying it, it's not inflationary.
Okay.
So those types of products, consumer behavior is going to determine whether or not it's inflationary or not. And I think for most things, it's probably not going to. If you start talking about mangoes or coffee, things that we can't produce here, that's a different story, which is why I don't think they're going to be impacted by tariffs. But again.
Okay. And if the consumer, and we're going to talk about how pricing and tariffs converge in the next episode. So I'm trying to keep away from that. But in your mind and you would know better than I would on this one. In your mind, do you think that the consumer for something like coffee in the United States, do you think that they're actually going to choose different, or do you think that they're going to figure out a way to change their behavior to stay with the same habits?
I think there's two different economies in the United States. There's the top 10% who don't care if coffee's $3 a pound or $6 a pound. The bottom, and then there's people in the middle, and then the bottom 50% will absolutely buy whatever's the cheapest. So I don't think, it just depends on what type of product we're talking about. But for the average, like what I do think is drinking coffee out, I think is probably going to be the first thing that a lot of people cut. Because,
right.
You could make a cup of coffee for $1 at home or whatever. It's expensive to go out. And I think that in itself will probably reduce demand for coffee if it's less convenient because coffee shops are closing to get it, or more too expensive, cut back. That alone is going to obviously, but I don't think people drinking coffee in their home are going to change their that much.
Okay, so that goes back to your car analogy, right? Like if the price goes up in the cafe, just because the price is inflated, it doesn't mean that people are actually going to buy it because they can't afford it. They're going to shift their behavior. Okay, so that's what that. Yeah,
that's my. I'm not an expert on coffee consumption, but yeah, I would say yes.
Right.
Probably another example I would say is in the United States, and I don't know, maybe most places. A lot of our consumers have gotten kind of spoiled on buying really cheap, like Chinese goods. So, for example, A lot of them, I don't do this, but a lot of them are buying clothes from China,
from
like
Shein. Yeah.
Shein, all that kind of stuff. But what I'm thinking is instead of buying 4 shirts for $50 or whatever they do, maybe they'll just buy one because you don't need that many shirts, right? So I really
Okay.
don't think it's going to be as game changing as a lot of people are predicting, but we don't know what we don't know. And I will say that I think I don't work, I can't speak for the administration, but they seem to be focusing on China. It sounds like they're going to be a little more lenient with the others,
Hmm.
pretty much everyone else. So I think that's really the focus. So not a lot of coffee
Okay.
coming from China, so hopefully it'll be safe.
So the thing that I found really interesting was once the tariffs were, well, just before the tariffs were announced, the futures market started to dip significantly. And then the tariffs were announced, and then no, actually it was the other way. The prices dipped when the tariffs were announced, and then the reciprocal tariffs were put on pause for 90 days, and then the coffee futures market started to go up again. What the fuck?
Okay,
I don't understand.
that is an amazing point, and I'm glad you brought it up. I don't think it has anything to do with coffee. What I think is going on there is the currency market. If you look at the currency markets, the US dollar is getting just obliterated, and there's a good reason for that. In late 2024, there was kind of this narrative, which I totally thought was insane. I thought it was insane the whole time, but this has been a weird couple of years. There was this kind of like US exceptionalism. Everybody kept talking about US
Yes.
exceptionalism. And so
Yeah.
people were basically buying dollars because they wanted to buy US stocks, US assets, housing, whatever it is they're buying. So they'd buy dollars, buy stocks, and then now all that money's going home. So everybody's selling their stocks, selling their dollars, and it's ripping the currency market to pieces. So I think what some of the commodities, like you'll see, it's not just coffee, soybeans, corn, a few others have rallied just simply because if the dollar is a lot cheaper, those value of those products is a lot more expensive for people buying with non-US dollars.
So is that an affordability thing? Because so if the currency goes down, other currencies are stronger, and so they can afford to get into the market. Is that did I
Right.
understand that
So
correctly?
so in other words, assets priced in US dollars are more attractive to other buyers now. So that's why you're seeing some of the commodities actually rally for no other particular reason. Currency.
Okay. So right now, tariffs for most origin countries except for China are at 10%. And China doesn't really send very much coffee to the United States, but
No.
what it does, it is booming in the amount of coffee it's growing. But it doesn't send a lot of coffee to the United States. It certainly won't be sending any fucking coffee to the United States.
I don't think it's going to send any coffee. They like to send fentanyl and really, really cheap plastic products. That's what they send. Like total junk. But anyway.
So, but the other thing that they do send that is going to affect the coffee industry in a massive way is packaging and merchandise and equipment. A lot of the equipment that is make roasting machines, espresso machines, coffee grinders, mugs, tote bags. A lot of that stuff is made in China or Vietnam. So that is going to get tariffed quite high if the reciprocal, particularly if the reciprocal tariffs come back. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I actually, if I recall correctly, I think Vietnam is cooperating. So I think they're going to benefit, I think, quite a bit from this.
Well, fingers crossed, because Vietnam's the second largest producer of coffee in the world. So they have struggled to sell a lot of their coffee since the tariffs got announced because people got spooked by it. And this is like going back to the previous episode where we were talking about, like, are these prices permanent? It's caused this kind of stagnation in people buying or selling because they don't know what's coming next. And it really contributes to the volatility, right?
Yes. And so to your point, you're exactly right. And that's why I believe tariffs are deflationary, because people pause, they stop spending, they stop doing things. And by definition, that removes demand and pulls prices down. So it's actually if you turn on the TV, everyone's going to say tariffs are inflationary, but because of the way humans behave and react to the tariffs, I think it's actually going to do the opposite. But yes, so I agree with you.
Right. But we should explain why people are saying that tariffs are inflationary, because there is a logic behind that as well, right?
Yeah. So what they're assuming is nobody changes their behavior. They're assuming prices all jump by 10%, 20, whatever it is, across the board, and consumers just continue buying the same products they were buying and behaving as if the price is the same, and that's just not how it works. So, but there, if you're doing strictly math and you assume everybody buys the exact same products, yes, tariffs would be inflation. They don't. I don't.
Yeah, and the simple reason for that is if I'm an importer of coffee and I'm importing from anywhere in the world other than China right now, I have to pay the 10% upfront if I was in America. And in a year like 2025, when my costs are going out of control, if I'm a smaller guy than the big seven coffee purchasers in the world, I've really got no choice then to figure out how to recoup that cost. And so I'm going to try and pass that on to the consumer. That may be a sink or swim moment for my business. And so if the logic behind it is that in order to recoup the cost of the tariffs, I'm going to pass that on to the consumer and the prices are just going to go up. But the deflationary part of that is if nobody buys, then that's a problem.
Correct. I will say the last time Trump was in office, a few items like he didn't do blanket tariffs like this, obviously, but so we don't have a lot to go on. Everybody's guessing. But the products that he did heavily tariff, like steel, aluminum, those types of things, I believe they only went up a couple percentage points. Like what ended up happening is all the parties involved in the transaction kind of ate a little bit, the consumer ate a little bit, and then it all kind of, but it wasn't like the price went up to the consumer exactly the tariff amount. You know, there's a lot of people eating it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's kind of how it works, because if you're someone that's paying a tariff to bring your product to the US, and your price too high, like you're not just going to make less, you're actually going to make nothing and probably lose money because you're selling. So it's tough. It's not going to be easy. That's for sure. I don't envy anyone that's suffering. And I'm, like I said, I'm not the government. I just live here. Don't take it out on me.
We love you, Carley. We
Yeah,
love you.
It's definitely a
You
challenge.
being American, we're not judging you for that, I promise. All right. In the next episode, folks, we're going to talk about how these events, the convergence of the price volatility and tariffs, are potentially going to change coffee, and if they're going to change coffee for good. So join us for the next episode in this series. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day.
I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.